Welcome into The Pitch, a coach's show about Ashland University women's soccer. I'm Kate Practice alongside head coach Cayleb Paulino. Cayleb, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's going to be great. First time of the year sitting down with you to talk here in this format. We're going to talk about, the first game of the year against Grand Valley, the second game against Slippery Rock, things to come. So to start, let's take a look back at this first week of the year, your initial thoughts.
Yeah, it was a great first two games for us. I think our group, being a younger group, we got to make sure that we're challenged and figuring out, what the environment's like, especially playing at Grand Valley, the first game of the year, what that's going to look like at the national stage. So I think it definitely prepared us. It allowed us to figure out what we needed to work on, and I think we transitioned really well into game two against Slippery Rock, who's a really good team out of the PSAC, and I thought we transitioned and got some areas that we need to clean up against Grand Valley figured out for sure.
And the time that me and you have been able to talk in between, the OSU exhibition to then Grand Valley and Slippery Rock, one thing you mentioned was kind of refining that form, getting some of those youngsters in, seeing what they can do for the team. But another thing that was kind of apparent was the offense, trying to find that void with McKinley Mendenhall gone. It took a little bit, but then in that second half, you guys really exploded on the offensive end.
Yeah, I think for us, we have a brand new group, and you graduate 14 seniors and you bring on 14 and then 3 transfers. It's a lot of new faces on the field, and I think that was unique pieces. We had 7 new faces at one point, all on the field together against the number 5 team in the country. And I think we're trying to figure out the lineup still. I think we're trying to figure out rotations. I think we're trying to figure out where the kids fit. And I think you have a short amount of time to figure that out, and especially playing at the Ohio States and the Grand Valleys of the world really quickly. You got to adapt and figure out what the best personnel is. And I think we're starting to figure that out in our players and getting a feel for what they're good at and how they can fit with each other in their rotation. So I think at the end of the day, it's good for us to play the Ohio States, the Grand Valleys of the world, because I think we need to be tested.
And as you guys kind of settle into the new year, it seems like the fans have done so as well. First game, still a lot out there. We had a lot online with over 800 tuning into the game on Flow College. But then you guys come back, Slippery Rock Saturday night, fill the Ferg. Almost nearly 1,000 people showed up. How incredible is that for the program?
Yeah, we didn't know what we were going to get, right? You publicize it and you hope for the best. And, at first, the first 30 minutes of warm-ups, you're seeing people come in and you're starting to figure out the magnitude of it. And, I told the group before the game, it's an opportunity to showcase what we have here. And I think a lot of people still don't know, how good this group is and what they've been able to do the last 4 years. And with the transition of a new team, create excitement for them. And hopefully we've drawn a couple more fans throughout campus and want to come to the game and create that experience, multiple times a year.
Yeah, when we talk about that Slippery Rock game, I think there's a little bit more to it, even though that, we've discussed it a little bit, but there's also something to, falling to OSU, but in an exhibition, you guys learned a lot. Going up against Grand Valley, really was just one opportunity that Grand Valley took advantage of. But how do you have all these youngsters who are trying to, get into the groove of their collegiate careers, come back and bounce back so strong? What's the mentality like in the locker room to avoid, falling down a slope?
Yeah, I think we challenged them the day in between on Friday. Usually it's a walk-through day for us, and I thought we had to get back into the competition piece. And we broke them up into 3 teams and played winners and losers, because I think you have to create that demand. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we've created in the training environment is we're always mixing up teams, and you can see the players coming in and out and the relationships that we're building. You don't know who you're going to play with. You don't know who's going to be hurt. You don't know who's playing well that day. We have to make changes based on what we feel the game is calling for, and it might be a specific skill set that we might need a certain amount of players to come on. And I think that's, they are living it every day in the competition. So I think sometimes they get to the game and they feel a little more settled in because the competition is so high in the training environment.
This isn't going to be the last time we talk about Dani Hicks, but we have to talk about Dani Hicks here to start the year. She's now tied for 7th in program history with 33 career goals. Got her 33rd, pocketed it as that first goal, honestly, against Slippery Rock that really helped to push the momentum forward. How incredible is her presence for the team?
Yeah, I still think she's one of the best players in the country at any level.
Yeah.
I think for her, she's grown into a leadership role where she's paired up with a lot of younger players, and players have helped her throughout the years and mentored her and allowed her to be the player that she is today. And I think Dani's starting to really embrace that role and help players like Tessa, like Cece, like some of the other freshmen that are pairing up with her. And I know she understands that we need them to be successful as well for us to be successful.
And the other 2 people who scored, Emily Pate with the header, and then Cece Craig was nearly outside the box, hit off that back post for the goal. How impressive was it to see them kind of find their footing as well?
Yeah, Emily Pate scored big goals for us last year, and it was off of being a substitute.
Yeah.
And now it's her time to step into the lineup and replace some players that have graduated for us. And nothing's changed for her. She's still an impact player for us, and getting a first-year kid with, Tessa assisting CC for the goal. I think that's going to build confidence for them. And I thought it was a breakout game for a lot of those players to get comfortable and understand, like, hey, listen, like, the challenge is you got to be up for the moment. And I think they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, and speaking of a breakout game, the goalkeeper, Jaya Daniel, her first NCAA Division II career shutout, it came against Slippery Rock. How else did you see her play?
Yeah, I think we're asking a lot of the leadership role for her. I think that's the players like Kenzie and Delinga last year that were always vocal and helping the backs. And, essentially we're starting 3 new players in the back, this past game. So, I think the leadership from that position is important in figuring things out before problems happen. And, she's a player that's won a national championship at Division III, and you can't make that up. Like, she's put in an environment before where she's handled those emotions, that competition. So it's great for her to be back there and help guiding us.
And, we talk about the players on the field, but let's talk a little bit more about the team as a whole. 2025, new year, new squad, a lot of freshmen, a lot of new faces that the Eagles are starting to come in contact with. Even if some of them are sophomores, just getting more time on the field, so they see them more often. Who do we got in this locker room? Are there any comedians, any individuals that certainly will catch your eye?
Yeah, I mean, it's a brand new group, so you can tell I've lost my voice because I've had to do a lot more coaching. In previous years, we just had to sit back and let the older players help the younger players around, and now it's managing moments. But I think the incoming group has created a lot more personality for the returners, and I think that's appreciated, and the kids love it. You have like players like Kalmar that is one of probably the funniest kids on the team, and she's always finding creative ways to lighten the mood with the group and creating competition too. Like, they love to talk smack to each other and compete. And I think like the nice piece with this incoming class is they hate to lose too, and they're backing it up and having banter and training. And I think the group is really gelling together, especially with so many new faces. I think that's unbelievably important to build that relationship, not with just the first-year kids with each other, but with the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, we oftentimes see a lot of different individuals communicating on the field, but when it comes down to that locker room, when you're either trailing or when you're tied to the break or you need some excitement in halftime to pull ahead further, who's those ones that are talking?
Yeah, we're still trying to build that voice, I think, at times. I think Kellen has transferred in for us and been a kid that's played at a big level and trying to find her voice in the back line, being an older player for us. And I think the juniors have done an unbelievable job of making sure that, they've been big time minute players for us in years past, and making sure that, they're not just waiting their turn to lead. And I think that's important. And the seniors, for them, they've always led by example. They're one of the most winningest class in program history, and they've set the tone of the things that you have to do daily in order to hold a standard here as far as Ashland women's soccer. And I think they silently do a really good job of leading by example and making sure that, we're not thinking anything's too little for us to do. So.
Yeah, and they're not just doing it on the women's soccer side of things. They're also doing it in the community and across campus and staying involved everywhere. One of the cool things is I'm always at a lot of these different events, volleyball, men's soccer, football, whatever it is, and women's soccer players are there in some sort of capacity, either watching or serving or doing something involving, that event for that day. Is that something that is a program standard?
Yeah, I think you have an unbelievable platform when you're at this level to give back, and I think soccer is such a small piece of why you're here. You're going to remember the wins and losses, but you're going to remember the opportunity that you have to impact the community. So, I think for us, the youth soccer nights on Mondays that we work with the teams in town, going and supporting each other, I think that creates your own environment as well. Like, the more support you show for other teams, the more they're going to support you. So I think for us, the standard is not to do the minimum here, whatever it is, whether it be, community service, giving back. I think it's an opportunity to impact as much as you can while you're here for 4 years, and I think the group does a really good job of that.
Yeah, I'm now shifting gears, looking at what's ahead this year. Central Missouri is the next matchup you guys have on the schedule. What challenges does that present, especially being in, I think it's a neutral site competition?
Yeah, first real road test for a young group, playing a team that's, in the conversation of winning a national championship year in and year out. So I think we're going to figure out how to handle a road trip, how to handle being out of class, how to handle the expectation of, okay, you're on the road, you got to reset the mindset, the routine is different, now we're going to develop a routine on the road. So I think, even though we play, on a Friday, we still have another really important game on Sunday as well with Davenport. And again, 2 major tests for us for teams that are trying to make their conference tournament, if not win at the national level. So it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to help us continue to grow.
And looking at the big picture for 2025, obviously it's just the start of the year, but what excites you about what's to come?
Yeah, I think we're going to be by committee. And I think that's the unique piece is, we've lost a couple kids here recently. We've had some kids coming back in the next couple of weeks. So I think like more than ever, we're the deepest we've ever been. Like I don't think like any real position's been solidified yet, except for maybe some couple roles with some returners for us. But I think the group is really doing a good job of understanding like when it's their time and their moment to make an impact. And you never know, like a CC subbing on, getting on the score sheet for us, like that's a huge boost for the morale of the next group. And I thought at the end of the first half against Slippery Rock, when we weren't playing well, the subs that came on really solidified and settled the game for us moving into the second half. So I think that's who we're going to be. I don't know if, day in and day out, we're going to be able to rely on just a handful. We're going to have to rely on 20-some. We played 29 the other night against Slippery Rock, and I think that's going to be by design.
Yeah. And my last question for you, Coach, Eagle Nation, what's your message to them as they continue to support you this year?
Yeah, I think like the impact that they have for us is tremendous. I think the environment that we created on Saturday, especially when Slippery Rock didn't play a game, allowed us to get through some difficult moments. So we appreciate all the support that we can get. Hopefully it's not a one-time thing from our student body, is to continue to support athletics and the women's program and us continuing to support them. So it made a huge impact and we loved it, and hopefully they enjoyed it, and it was something like, hey, we should come every week. But we'll see, and hopefully we can get that student section in the corner, keep going.
That'll be great. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Well, if you want to follow along with Ashland University Women's Soccer, you can head over to goashlandeagles.com. You can find everything, the roster, the coaches page, statistics, schedule, you name it, you can find it there. That's all we've got here today. Thanks for tuning into The Pitch right here on the Eagle Network.